Adrift is one of those recent games that polarized people around that issue of what actually constitutes a game again, and many of the usual points seem to resonate more strongly within here than I've seen before for a long time. It is what amounts to a walking simulator, or I should say a floating simulator, that embodies everything people argue against. A guided path to follow with certain events and story elements that tie it all together and pop up now and then. It's a simple game style and a simple game in many ways, but when it comes to these, I find it is better to judge them on the experience they provide, because that can be a very personal thing. Adrift is and isn't a good game in many ways. The graphics and visuals are, of course, gorgeous, but at the same time, rather lackluster at times. The set pieces you move are incredibly detailed, not to mention that realistic style of design that has gone into the creation of it, but much of it feels rather recycled. Yes, it is a space station and you kind of expect that kind of build here, but it makes the experience blend together too much. A mix of corridors, panels, and fixtures that all blend together into this sleek, stylized nothingness. There are a few brilliant set pieces there that do shine above the rest, that create singular moments of beauty and stand out against the white shine and dark nothingness, but they feel too fleeting and more like pit stops to the next objective. The skybox looks rather beautiful as well, shining with the bright rays from the sun as it floats past the fluorescent glow of lights that push away the darkness in areas, and of course the billions of stars shining in the horizon. It just makes for some brilliant set pieces and a brilliant background to this game. But then, with all this detail, it's weird to see how badly the planet itself is rendered, which often ruins the illusion for me. If you just take the time to look past your immediate surroundings, there's this weird textural mismatch between the actual ocean and the land itself, and it seems more like just a texture overhaul rather than a developed Earth in the background, and that's what it really needed to be. Mechanically, it feels a little short-sighted at times too. The same objective will be repeated 4 times throughout the game, and they are so similar that they feel indistinguishable from the last one you completed. The same audio is played at the start, the same steps need to be taken, and the same final goal of manufacturing that core and placing it where it needs to be. There are certain differences in areas, but much of the gameplay feels the same throughout. Float slowly through these corridors, cross the gap through space while collecting glowing oxygen, and that's pretty much it. It often feels like the oxygen system is the only mechanic to this game, both using and recovering it, and in that way it fails as a game, as this system seems incredibly poorly designed as well. At the beginning, it feels far too punishing, limiting your movement and exploration around this environment, and frustrating you at certain failures. Later on, it's absolutely irrelevant as you have such a high reserve and those canisters are absolutely everywhere that oxygen becomes meaningless. And then there is just how weird it feels to have these oxygen canisters at every gap in space between the different areas, each intersection and within every larger room, each floating little panel. It was pointless and more of a mechanic that felt placed in afterwards so they could call it a game. The story feels rather limited and haphazard as well. There are a few audio snippets that will be played when you reach certain areas that tell you about the crew. A few you can find as well that maybe give you a little bit more detail on them, but mostly replay information you had already learnt. A broadcast from Earth about what is happening below, and well, that's it. It's all rather passive. It could have been far better and made Adrift into something a little more interesting to play. It has that core focus of uncovering who may have caused this accident to the space station, with each crewmate seemingly having a hidden past, personality or reason, but you have no interaction with this.
I have been profoundly changed by my experiences in space, but not in the ways others have. I never want to go back. I never feel the euphoric connection to every living being on Earth as others describe. From the moment my feet touch the ground again, I experience profound emptiness and the insatiable urge to flee.
It could have been this epic space mystery detective scene, but instead it's more like a prettied up Dear Esther, just without the introspection and personal analysis. In spite of that though, there are moments where you can't help but marvel at the majesty of it all. These moments where you can't help but sit and smile at the awe-inspiring aspects of space, the vast nothingness, the feelings of insignificance, and the sheer beauty of space. Transposed over the top of that with tracks of lilting classical music, and it just completes those moments. I really wanted to like it. However, it is a game that tells me they were more worried about the presentation of Adr1ft rather than the experience it could provide. More worried about creating a pretty and polished VR tech demo than a game people could enjoy and be engaged by. There are moments there, of course, where you are captured by the visuals, but quickly pulled away once you're dealing with the actual mechanics again. It could have been a good game, it could have been a decent experience, but it's all just rather average at the moment, and kind of what I expected from it, unfortunately. If you like this thing, or if you watched Gravity and thought that looks fun, then maybe this is for you as well. But for everyone else out there that maybe wants a more detailed and intricate experience and more of a game, then I would probably look to some of the other games out there at the moment. Thanks everybody, and see you later!